Well, in less than a year, Nigerians will be going to the polls to elect new leaders and, of course, see if some of the old ones will have another stamp to come back. Basically, what Nigerians are dealing with at the moment is also trying to appreciate the beauty of democracy and see how great the electoral umpire would have improved upon from previous elections. Nigeria conducting this particular election under a revamped, improved and approved Electoral Act, with technology expected to play a central role in the success of the new order. Now, INEC faces a race against time. That's the electoral umpire to perfect its usage of the technology, but faces a more difficult task in getting ready for the demands of its new methods. Today on Village Square Africa, we'll be looking at the tough test ahead for the Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria. Welcome, I'm Sulaiman. Finally came as a big surprise to a lot of Nigerians as the president signed the Electoral Act into law, which will be the guiding document for elections in the country. And of course, the use of electronic voting and its passage and approval has also been met with cheers, but its possibility is also hinged on many other factors in Nigeria. Some few days ago, INEC conducted local council polls at the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, and the experience of voters showed there is still a lot to be done. The Bimodal Voters Accreditation System, otherwise known as the BVAS, which has replaced the ZPAD previously used by INEC, many say is a good technology that's yet to be mastered, going by expert opinions. Now, voters complained that the accreditation process was slow, or on occasions even impossible. Logistics and the deployment of technology are still main issues challenging INEC's readiness for the 2023 elections. While BVAS combines voter enrollment, voter accreditation, and resource interface capabilities in just one device, it needs fast internet and at least 3G to function at all and 4G to function optimally. Nigeria today has 41% internet penetration, and 4G covers just 10% of the total population. Joining me to unpack this today on the square is Mike Igini, who's the Independent National Electoral Commission, the Resident Electoral Commission for Akwa-Ibom State, and of course Cyril Abaku, who's a researcher and African Affairs Analyst, will also be joining me. First with Cyril. Cyril, good to see you and thanks for your time. Now, I know you've been following the electoral umpire INEC in Nigeria, but it will seem as if the issues, bedeviling preparations, for elections are still very much there with INEC, talking about logistics and, of course, a slow process or a slow start in accreditation. But by and large, how would you rate INEC so far leading up to these coming elections?
So thanks first of all for having me on your show, Sulaiman. It's a pleasure. I'm glad to join you tonight. So let's begin by saying that INEC appears to be doing its best, or appears to be doing the much it can do, given the resources available to it and the space it has to operate in. So I think to that extent, we would say that INEC has demonstrated some level of stability of character, some level of, ability to simply do what it can do, given the chances it has. For example, we saw what happened in Ondo, we saw what happened in Edo. For its part, as a non-partisan umpire, I think that it is simply doing the best it can. I believe that given the chances, we could see a better outing. We could see, we could perhaps have higher results coming out of INEC's activities or what INEC is mandated to do by law. But I think that so far it is basically a matter of if this is all that we have to work with, given the circumstances, let's go ahead to do what we can. I mean, we also saw what happened in Anambra. It means that with reduced political interference, it means that with absence of insecurity, INEC should be able to do a whole lot more. But right now, Nigerians desire and hope that the delivery was a bit better. For example, if you look at the level of voter enrollment or voter registration going on now with the CVR, it leaves a lot to be desired. But we don't know if the inability to deploy better strategy is essentially INEC's own, or the fact that it finds itself operating within a space that does not enable it to do much more than it is doing. I would like to open with these words and hope that maybe you can follow up with what I've said.
Well, let me quickly welcome Mike Igini, who is the resident electoral commissioner in Akwa-Ibom State. Mike, good to see you and thanks for your time. You've been, even before you became a resident electoral commissioner, you've spoken eloquently on how we can improve on our electoral system. Help us here quickly. A lot has actually gone into INEC's preparations for the 2023 elections. And for many Nigerians, they say this is a make or break election and a bigger test for INEC. There have been some elections for the commission to test its credibility. There were by-elections in Delta State, first in Anambra, and the local council polls at the FCT. Next, the Osun and Ekiti governorship elections. So now it brings the question, how ready is INEC for the big one in 2023?
Well, Sulai, thank you for the invite to be part of this engagement. Looking at the broad outline of the 2023 elections as we move closely to that period. First and foremost, it should be noted that the end of one electoral cycle begins the next one. So in effect, the end of the 2019 election actually heralded the preparation for the 2023 election, which is now work in progress. Yes, we are aware that with respect to voter registration, using the Bimodal system that we have, the BVAS, is ongoing. We'll be heading for the fourth quarter. And by July or August or so, we should be rounding up with respect to voter registration. In the same vein, the Commission is also doing a test run of some of the innovations that we have brought on board. And we can see so far the outcome of those elections in terms of the fact that it reflected the will of the people, bearing the challenges that operational challenges we normally have, which at the moment is being looked into seriously. This early morning arrival of men and material, which has been an issue, we're looking at that seriously. But very quickly on that, what should be noted is the fact that INEC operates in an environment, and in that environment, we have other key stakeholders who have a role to play. It is inconceivable to say that INEC should purchase hundreds and thousands of vehicles for the purpose of one-day electoral operation. And that is why we have to engage the Nigerian NURTW and other vehicle owners. But what we have found over time, that despite all the efforts that have been made to ensure that, for instance, you engage on a contract to carry men and materials to polling unit on election day. We have a contract, okay, let's pay half of the entire sum. We did that. At some point, they will say, no, pay the full money. You pay the full money. On the day of election, shockingly, the same people who have collected full amount of money, they will not show up. How do you respond to that on election day? How do you respond to that? No amount of punishment, nothing can compensate for a failed election, because election day is a day for implementation. And so, Sulai, let me tell you here, when I listen to some of the conversation going on about 2023, as somebody who has been in the system, and as you noted, we have been the advocate for free, fair, credible election for the sustenance of democracy in the fatherland for a very long time, right from the university days. And so, having been in the system, I can tell you confidently, since 2010, I have seen elections, and I can tell you right away that the greatest threats to the 2023 election is not about INEC basic routine preparation, voter registration, the purchase of beavers, little challenges, and so on. Those are not the issues. The real issue for 2023, we are not looking at that. It has to do with the disarray of the political class at the moment. Look at what is happening across the political party. Political party management going to 22 years has been an unmitigated disaster. And the first primary duty of any political party in a democracy is preparation of that party for the selection or nomination of candidates. Then where are we today, Sulai? We are regressing. Look at the crisis going on across political parties. We focus more about the two major political parties. Do you know that the worst of all the corporate are even the smaller political parties? Now, why 2023 is very concerning, and that the focus should not be on INEC, is the fact that 2023 election is not a second term continuation election. 2023 election is an election, what we call a new elite formation for the country, anywhere in the world. When people are completing their second term, and you are going to have a new general election, we are talking about new elite formation that will determine the next 4, 8, or 16 years. Most of the people we find in one political party or the other today, they are not going to be together. This is the disarray we are having at the moment. Political party management has been a major disaster for the country. We have got to a point where even the choice of who should be a candidate, we could see right now that we don't even want members of political party to participate in the process of making that choice. I mean, you see all the back and forth going on about issues about nomination processes. So today, we now have direct, we have indirect, we have consensus. That is a major problem we are facing now. And we are speaking. Sulai, a new election is an election to renew the journey of a country. Every election to renew the journey of a country.
I'll come back to you, Mike Igini, because you have opened a very, a different vista which will interest Nigerians and Africans watching us, because you talked about, Nigeria going into an elite, formation in the next election, and also talk about the politics that we're seeing within the political class. These are two big issues that we want you to expound on. Let me jump in and bring in Cyril for a bit here. Cyril, before we move to the resident electoral commissioner in Akwa-Ibom State, we're talking about arrival of materials. And he's also said a bit of, giving a sense of what ultimately, do happen, to the extent that they make all the preparations, but at on D-Day, some of these people are nowhere to be found. Have you been able to also find, have you spoken to any of these people, to get a sense of why this is so?
Well, I haven't worked with INEC before, so my answer would be categorical no. But at the same time, I think a few things are easy to understand, which is to say that if in reality members of a union are not cooperating, there has got to be a solution. We've done elections we've had one in 99, 2003, 2007, 11, 15, and 19. So if after about 6 or so efforts, we say that we haven't been able to find an alternative, I find it a bit hard to place, because the fact is that when you keep testing and it's not, there has to be a way you sit back and they have a union, for example, so you can engage from that top-bottom approach. That's one. And then if that's not working, what is the alternative? We don't want to believe that that in itself is the biggest problem. It may not be. It may not be. I'm glad that Barrister Igini did point to the fact that we are approaching the 4th quarter of the ongoing continuous voter registration. Now, several Nigerians have PVCs they've not gone to collect. Several Nigerians have gone to local government secretariats to collect PVC, and they have been frustrated. The level of awareness, the level of conscientization of people to the degree that it reduces significant voter apathy has not been dealt with. We have had elections in Edo and I think in Ondo, where we saw people come out en masse to embrace the process, so to say, to vote. You saw even in Edo, where you saw people going to INEC office to say, call the result, let us hear. We voted, we've come to monitor our votes, that sort of thing. So I think that it's not, so in those instances, what happened? What happened? It meant that even if something could have gone bad, there was some kind of, somebody came to save the day, or there was some kind of rescue. I think that an election day does not make an election. It is the build-up process that makes an election day successful. Let me give an example. In Oyo, I want to believe maybe in Akwa-Ibom too, in Oyo, in several states of the country, we see resident electoral commissioners going to churches, going to mosques, going to traditional rulers, and saying, look, the continuous voter registration is on. Please get people to come and participate in the process and so on. But I was asking myself, what stops us from using places like post offices, the NIMC, or even adopt the pattern of census, making sure that, because you see, getting people on board to accept and to own the process is not just an INEC thing. Given our history with military, with militarism over the years, voter registration and the electoral process is part of democratization. It's part of regenerating the Nigerian mind to accept that democracy should be our way of life. So even these people in NU, RWW can be made.
Well, there seems to be a glitch there, and we'll come back to you, Cyril, as soon as the audio is back. Let's quickly go to Mike Igini. You said something, and it looks as if Cyril was almost coasting towards that aspect. And these two big issues will ultimately interest Nigerians. Let's dig in deep. You talked about the disarray of political class, Mike. And when people see these in Nigeria and around the continent, they think that that's politics. But you say some of these, things ultimately affect, the election. Let us in on how this affect the election negatively.
Yeah. Across Africa, and I speak about our country, the nature and character of the primary process and convention would define the entire atmosphere leading to that election. Across the country at the moment, you could hear the cacophonous voices within the political parties about a kind of resisting members of their political party to be fully involved in the process of nomination. Now, those crises are going to throw up a huge litigations across the country. I mean, you also can see the issue about people jumping from one party to another, and look at the confusion, look at the court, everywhere is clogged today. I mean, if you read the paper in the last 24 hours, I mean, we are seeing how people who are defected some 1-2 years ago, those matters are now being revisited. Now, beyond that, is the fact that, as I mentioned to you, that 2023 election is like the 2007 and 2015 election. It's an election for entire new elite formation. Now, the behavior of the elite at the moment, the crisis going on, is going to define the polity adversely. There's no doubt about that. Now, in any electoral environment, we have about 6 key stakeholders. And the success of any election depends on all these stakeholders. With respect to Mr. Siri issue about voters' awareness, you see, civic and voters' education is a multi-stakeholders responsibility. It's not only that of INEC. In fact, the political parties that are indeed the essential organ of the democratic process, those of them who will ask for votes, because on election day, INEC will not seek for vote, but political parties and their candidate will seek for vote. We have engagement with them. I'm sure you cover all the meetings, stakeholders meeting in Abuja, where we unveil every program to them. It's expected that when they go back, they engage with the people. Now, so with respect to the ongoing voter registration exercise, we have, for example, here in Akwa-Ibom, across the state, we have put out jingle in the local dialect on radio, calling on people to come and register.
That's by INEC in Akwa-Ibom State.
That's by INEC doing that. Now, you have political parties who are the essential organ of the democratic process. It's their primary duty. They are the ones seeking for vote. But what do? In fact, what they are doing now, is that they are mobilizing ineligible underage people and people who are registered to do what they call double registration. Interestingly, as I speak to you, the Commission has developed a very robust system of the Affairs system. And that is why, before the Anambra election, well over 60,000 were weeded out. It's not easy for us now to weed all those things out. But we are doing that at a cost to the Commission. At a cost to the Commission. The political parties, the political elite politicians are the greatest threat to the democracy. Look, I must tell you, Sulai, the focus should not be about INEC.
There seems to be a glitch now, well, to our connection in Akwa-Ibom. We'll come back and we'll let Iguini complete this, talking about, civic orientation, which is very key leading up to any election, especially in Nigeria. Cyril, you're back. And, some of the key things you were trying to raise, I think Mike has just also given Philip to them. And it has to do first with sensitizing the people. There were lots of complaints from voters at Abuja council polls, especially on the use of beavers. Would you say that, I think I lost a connection to Philip as well. Basically, we're looking at the importance of civic orientation, which the political parties are not doing. Time was when agencies of government, like the National Orientation Agency would help, do that. For now, it is only INEC as the electoral umpire that is sensitizing the people. And I'm asking, how can we, make the political parties understand that one essential aspect of a political party is to educate the voter?
So I think that the matter about our political parties is too familiar for us to rehash. Let me give an example. If you, I mean, for those of us who are a bit invested in or interested in political history, what we're seeing today happening in the build-up to 2023 is really nothing new. In fact, we thought that we were going to head for Armageddon in 2015. It didn't come. In 2019, we thought the same thing was going to happen. It didn't come. You will find that close to the election, somehow they will resolve their differences and then they head into the polls. That's one. Number two, if you even hear the political elite, political class talking about zoning and so on, I tell myself sometimes that if these people had confidence in voters, if they had respect for voters, they wouldn't be so brazen in the manner in which they bandied their ideas about it is the turn of the South or turn of the North and so on. Because if in the end, really and truly, Nigerian voters are going to decide who becomes president, they couldn't be so, certain and sort of optimistic about the fact that once they pick somebody from the North, it will be fait accompli. So clearly, there is a disconnect between the political parties and the electorate. That is a subject matter for investigation. But what I'm saying is that by law, if political parties do not conduct civic education, it will not disqualify them from fielding candidates for an election. The people who are given the mandate legally to come to the voter, I mean, the fact that parties are not persuading people to register does not mean that INEC should not, for example, collaborate with the National Identity Management Commission or post office, or come to my house or come to my church and say, you know what, in continuation of voter registration. Because we must understand that the way we approach the pandemic, voter apathy is today not just, it is pathological. It is a disease affecting our national life. They won't vote. So you will even go to certain places, some remote places where people, they are on election, people are playing football on, in their backyards, because they have come to believe that fair or square, whether they vote or not, it will not count. Now, my take is that Beavers and the IVET system have only come to enhance the process. They will not, and when I mean enhance process, it means that if out of 5,000 registered voters, only 2,000 have been voting, it will only make sure that those 2,000 votes count. It will not on its own automatically transform the process overnight. It is when people begin to say that their votes are going to, I met a 74-year-old man some weeks ago, and he told me that he went to register. They told him to come back after about, I think about 6 months. He went again, he's going to come after 2 or 3 months. You expect someone, I can't blame any political party for that. You expect a man in his 70s to travel from wherever he's living to a local government headquarters, not even a ward headquarters, local government headquarters, where he will go for a publicity that he's not likely to even get. So we ought to accept that if the parties are not doing their job, the election management body too has to accept that a lot more can be done. It is when we have done all that we can do in our power, then we can effectively define the boundaries and the limitations of the vacuum that exists because others have not done their job. But as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing political parties are doing that is new. Even if some CSOs came into the picture, they are not bound by law, and you're not even funding them. Maybe the European Union or Ford Foundation or somebody has seen that there's a lacuna, and they're coming in to help. Those are like welcome helpers, and you should give them room to do what they want to do. But for us as a people, I think that we have not. INEC there's a lot of help for more to be done. Getting people, for example, with the new electoral act being passed, I commend Dr. Iguini. In Akwa-Ibom, they speak Ibibio and maybe Efik and a few other languages. So if he is deploying that ingenuity to reach the people, I commend him for that. But I feel that on a broader national level, something is fundamentally amiss, and we have to accept that fact. It is only when we have accepted, yes, we have to accept it. And for me, I think we should address it as a pathology affecting our national life, when it comes to democratization.
Let me jump in here, Cyril. Apologies, button in. Let me bring in Mike quickly here. We're meant to go on a break, but I think we'll ditch that and just run this through. We have a lot to cover. We still haven't actually touched. We haven't touched security.
So very quickly.
Okay, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
You see, voters' apathy is a multifactorial issue. We have a saying in my community that it is what the axe does for the farmer that makes it put it on the shoulder. Political class have not been able to rally the citizens around issues that matter to them. Few months to 23 election, rather than talk about job creation, security, health, education, those key issues that matter to the life of the people. We are not focusing on those issues. We are discussing religion, ethnicity, zone. These are the issues. Two, just for one break, is the fact that
No, Mike, I know the producer has called that out. So we're driving through. We're not going on a break now. So let's go ahead.
Okay, fine. Two, is the fact that before 2011, elections in Nigeria were rigged for a very long time. Look at the history of the country. You talked about being a student of history. Even the first election of pre-independence election was rigged. Britain introduced Nigeria into election rigging. It was the worst election was 2007 election. 2007 election was the worst election in our country. But since 2011, there have been a remarkable departure. But people for so many years, for decades, have been used to election rigging. And so people feel that their vote do not count. That's the reason why the commission started from Jega and the current leadership, and interestingly, have been part of this whole innovation since 2010. We brought about the biometric registration exercise. We brought about Carida. We introduced now the Bibas to ensure that today, if you look at the you're talking about, the whole idea of innovation is to bring transparency and accountability to the process. Because if vote do not count, election becomes a mere ritual without choosing. And that is why we have introduced innovation to ensure that what used to happen before, where at the polling unit, results that have been now declared and people in that community have said, oh, we have voted for X person as won. By the time it gets to the work collation center or the local government, senatorial, or the levels of collation process, they've been altered and changed.
But again, Mike, let me butt in here quickly. No, Mike, sorry. Let me jump in here, Mike. Let me jump in here quickly. Still with you, Mike. Still with you. Let me jump in here. You know, you said earlier that some people have still tried to, circumvent, the system, shortchange the system. In the midst of all of these, innovations you've talked about, how is it that they still don't understand that, well, it's old school, it's no longer profitable for you to try such, and you'll be found?
I saw some video in the, what do you call it, Yalaguja by-election on the 26th, and that of Imose. Very shameful, very, very shameful. Look, let me tell you, make no mistake here. As INEC is innovating, the bad politicians we have in our country, they are also innovating in a negative way. Otherwise, the kind of thing we saw with those by-elections is scary. But the good news is that when you steal the band, the drum of a community, where are you going to beat it? Right now, the result must emanate from the polling unit. It must be uploaded into the cloud. It is transmission. They are going to hack. What are you going to hack? You can't hack anything. It is taken to the cloud. So now what we have done is that we have brought transparency to the process of accounting for the vote of Nigerian people at the polling unit. Look, we want to end the business of tribunal. Because you look at the whole tribunal, it's all about corruption. Where those who are spending billions will say, go to tribunal, go to court.
I mean, it's only in our country that the bad people are the one referring Nigeria to go to court because it's corruption. It's all about corruption. They use public money to fight election litigations. This is unfair. And so what we are introducing, what we are bringing in, and make no mistake here, they are going to resist. They are resisting it. I mean, you could see how long it took us to even agree on something that we all know is good for us. All right? But as President Smith, the fourth governor of New York, was declared at the most difficult time of American early democracy, was that the era of democracy can only be cured by more democracy. So for us as a commission, we must continue to do that. But I think that Sulai, the debate, the conversation about 2023 should focus on the following. One, you must focus on us, the umpire. You must continue to look at what we are doing, perhaps for us to have a far and larger, more objective view of what we are doing. Number two, security is a key threat. Security is a key threat to 2023, any election at all. When I talk about security, I'm not talking about the issue about the banditry, the kidnapping. Those are even not the issue at all. The issue is it right in our democracy, in our election, that security institution that supposed to commit to the ideal of the state, first and foremost, should they be allowed within and among members of political party for security to be partial within a group, within a party, against other members of political party? That's number one. Number two, is it also right for security personnel to be partial in terms of inter-party election in our country? Number three, is it right that as we are going to 2023, is it a proper procedure? Is it right, a good practice, that some states will witness turnover over 6 to 7 commissioners of police that will be replaced every now and then because somebody is searching or shopping for a pliable CP that will work for a particular group? Is that what we want in our country? We need to have, in fact, I expect that political class should call for a summit so that as a country, we will all publicly commit that in the 2023 election, security should not be seen to be for some people against others. Because as it is today, security has become a key issue. But I think that the debate is to take the South Korean model, is today call on the political party to come for a debate, aspirant on education, job creation, health, infrastructure.
Let me bring in Cyril.
When we come to the arena of debate, all of them will fix so hard. Many of these people you are seeing today as aspirants, they will fix so hard.
Let me bring in Cyril. Cyril, I wanted to weigh in on what Mike has said because it looks like there must be an interrogation, more or less like when you seek a job and you need to be interviewed. And he's saying that the people should also interrogate these people. Let us in on, some of the formats that you would love to see. That's if you agree, but if you don't, let us in on what you think that the people are not getting right so that we'll see a diminishing, effect in anomalies in elections. Cyril.
Okay, so I think that first things first, I think it was Adam Smith, the famous British economist, who said one time that the bread we eat is not because of the benevolence of the baker. He said that the wine we take is not because the brewer loves us, neither is it true that so what he was saying basically was the fact that it is because somebody wanted to make some profits. That's why you have bread at the end of the day, you have wine, and so on and so forth. And and then he said the butcher also, the meat you have on the table is because the butcher wanted to make some profit. So the butcher, if you hope that because there was a brewer in town, you're going to have wine, or simply because there was a baker in town, you're going to have bread, or because there was a brewer, you're going to have meat, it's not going to happen. the Nigerian political class will not throw off what it is benefiting from like that. FOC, free of charge. I don't see it happening. Everything that has ever happened has had to come because Nigerians woke up to engage the process. Now, if there was anybody who had the wherewithal or who had the knowledge of the process and of the procedure, and to arm common Nigerians or the electorate with the knowledge of what to do and how to engage, for me, it is still the electoral umpire. If you say from EC9, what does that mean? If you say beavers, what does that mean? If you say voter accreditation, actual voting, and so on, what do all of those mean? Because the fact is this, even for the issue of insecurity, he was talking about, Barrister Igini was talking about the challenge of partisan policemen and so on. That is terrible. It is ignominious. We've seen it happen over time. Police people are escorting a candidate to the scene of to where he's going to vote. How do you not expect them to give him undue advantage? As a matter of fact, it is sacrilegious because the Constitution is like the Bible, and elections are the ritual. Where this happens, it is not much of committing sacrilege. But I still come down to the fact that common Nigerians don't even have access to the Electoral Act. The way and manner in which Nigerians can become aware, conscientized, empowered with knowledge, to be able to resist an anomaly when they see it, is when the person who is a repository or a custodian of that body of laws and regulations and rules and so on steps up to the game and begins to tell Nigerians what is at stake.
We're costing home. Before we come to Iguini and close, Cyril, what I want you to also try and explain to us, if you can make this clear, is some of the key things I picked again from Mike is if Nigerians get the leadership recruitment process right, it will minimize some of these challenges. I want you to speak to that for us.
Okay, so first of all, the reality is that very often, and here again, the media has to come into the picture, because very often what we find is that elections always turn out to be two-horse races. You will find that there is the major party and then there's the opposition. There are people, fair enough, I can't campaign for anybody, but there are candidates who are speaking to issues: job creation, restructuring, fiscal federalism, and so on. People are speaking to these things, but perhaps because they don't have money backing them, they are unable to get their voices heard above the roof. So what are we going to do? First of all, more persons ought to come into the, more voters, more people have to become aware of what is going on, and that the process can get better when they get involved. Sulai. And that once this process is gotten right, and the people who deserve, who are duly voted for, are not shortchanged and scuttled, then you will find that those people will become a representation and a reflection of the will of the larger number of the people, who will then be able to translate and effectively photocopy what they have told the Senate to go to bring it to leadership and governance, which means that his being there is only for the fact that he has been given the mandate to act as the people's representative. So what can happen? Well, let's hope that the people INEC has spoken to will also trickle down the message. But I think that for that to even begin to happen, we need to see a more robust engagement with the voters, with people in rural areas, telling them that, look, these elections will be better, and with the passage of the new Electoral Act, you have a chance to have your voice heard directly. Okay? That's what I think should be done, heard directly. And so when one election comes and it goes well, another election comes and goes well, you will find that ultimately, people begin to have faith in the process, and thereby we can sanitize the electoral process in Nigeria.
Let me bring Iguini as we close this conversation. Mike, so many things we're trying to look at, and one of the key things I recall then when that election held, after that election, we had a conversation live, and it had to do with your experience, what the commission did with Edo, first with Ondo and Edo, to the extent that people could sit in the comfort of their homes and see how the election was going online. Now Nigerians are asking, is the country ready for electronic voting? Is there a way to do it without hitches in Nigeria?
Well, Sulai, with respect to, when you talk about electronic voting system, it's very broad. There are various aspects to it. What we are basically doing, given the level of our infrastructure, is to go on incremental basis. And you can also see that as rudimentary as the process we are trying to put in place, you could see the level of resistance that we have been facing from the political class. Now, and that speaks to what Lebitsky and Zipler in their recent work, How Democracy Died. You see, democracy will die if and when, as we continue to see in our country, that the political elite acquired authoritarian features where they deny the legitimacy and participation of other people. Now, talking about the role of INEC, I am saying that, look, we are going to miss big time 2023 if we don't take the debates to the key issues that matter. We are going to miss it again. In 2023, the issues that I identified, that I've mentioned, you can add to that list: job creation, education, security, health, and all of that. This time around, Sulai, the question should no longer be about promises now. Having regard to the level of the way the economy is now, people must speak to Nigerian people. How do they want to do it? How? It's not about promising people. No, it's not about promising now. That is when we know those who have the capacity. Because the greatest tragedy of our country is that those who have no philosophical insight to what leadership and service are all about, and who are uneducated on issues of governance, are today in position of power. And you all know that everything rises and falls with leadership. And that is why the leadership recruitment process, we must get it right. How well a company is doing, you go and look at the recruitment policy. Look at the various organizations, international company you have here, or even private one you have here. Go and check the recruitment policy. Right here in our country, people who have no philosophical insight to what leadership is about are the ones there. And that is why I said the South Korea model, we don't have the time to speak on this now, is what we must develop. Because the South Korean model was such that it was clear to everybody that for you to be a councillor, to be a local government chairman, to be a governor, to be a president in South Korea, which is now different from North Korea, you must debate on some of the issues that I've mentioned. This time I'm not about, I promise education. No, tell us. You must tell Nigerians how you want to do it. This time around, it is how you want to achieve it. That's what we should go to. So when you talk about INEC, don't forget, INEC is not the issue. Look, there's a book I'm working on, which I title Theory and Practice of Elections. So you should know that, we are veterans, and with all humility, we have been in a system. We were some of those who work with Abiola right from the university. So we are talking about not theory now. We're not talking about theory. We're talking about theory and practice. Theory and practice. Do you know that's lie? As of today, we have to proceed against a professor who is now serving 3 years jail term, convicted for 3 years. Another professor is already on trial. Do you know the number of people who are undermining the process in this country? What are we doing about that? As we are planning, we talk about electoral operation on election day. Do you know that in few months to election, politicians in the riverine area, they are going to pay for all the boats, the speed boat, they will pay for everything so that INEC could not have access. So should INEC go and be buying millions of a boat will cost the country millions
Mike, that brings us to this one. If we can touch on this in 2 minutes so that we can close quickly here. It brings us to, the need for INEC to have at least $1 billion. But at the moment, INEC's budget for the 2023 election is believed to be in the region of $350 billion. So if INEC is, going into a whole lot now, also sensitizing the people, prosecuting the election, it would mean one thing. How much is enough for INEC to actually push some of these fine ideas and innovations we're talking about?
INEC, like every other public institution, particularly our own service, is not for profit making, it's for service for Nigerian people. And every service, there must be value for the Nigerian money. Now, like the chairman noted a few days ago, you see, the funding of INEC with the new Electoral Act amendment, is being staggered so that all the budget should not come in 2023. So all the procurement that needed to be procured right now, because some of those you not getting the share, they are now being done. The issue about maybe money for honoraria and all of that could come much later. And I think so far, as Chairman said, there's been a very positive direction in that area. But in terms of, in all of Africa, in terms of the cost per ballot for each voter, I think Nigeria is still very much behind. But as far as people like us we are concerned, it shouldn't be about the problem we are having. It's not because we have not been so funded and all of that. That's not the problem. The problem we are having is not because we don't have good laws, and all, even though we still need laws to deal with some other area, but the refusal of the political class to be law-abiding. The refusal of political class to be law-abiding. And that's why I call on my colleagues in the judiciary that there should be no room for a permissive society, that any person who is found one thing, like what the judge did in Akwa-Ibom here, that's the kind of thing. You see, many of the politicians you see today, they are supposed to be in jail. Most of them are not supposed, those of them you see walking free, they are not supposed, look, some of them are lucky that some of us, we are not in the bench. If I am in the bench, very honest, if they come to my court, they will not go.
I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. And a lot of people across the continent sending in messages. I think it looks like, Mike, if you don't mind, maybe in the foreseeable future, we should have another conversation. The sensitization of Nigerians and Africans leading up to elections should be an ongoing process. I want to thank you for your time out of your busy schedule to speak with us here on VSA. And of course, Cyril Abaku, many thanks for your time. And Sulaiman, bye-bye.